Hello and welcome back to All for United, and specifically a tactical preview, looking ahead to a massive weekend ahead. Big game for United, obviously trying to follow up on that momentum gained from Leeds, the 5-1 win at Leeds. I've got a brilliant panel lined up for you, which you will obviously see after the intro. So without further ado, I'll see you on the other side.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from Passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Boys, it's brilliant to have you on. As I said, proper handsome panel for you today. Some proper gentlemen. I had to keep checking that I wasn't on mute as I was watching the last week's show back, and Karthik was on mute. So if you're watching, Karthik, ha, unlucky mate. But yeah, boys, brilliant to have you on. As I said, massive game coming up. Obviously, it's brilliant to have the first day win, but you've got to follow that up, haven't you? You've got to build a bit of momentum. So I'll come to you straight away, Mark. How important is it to build up on that momentum that we've sort of got going?
Well, firstly, I just want to say I love a bit of Karthik slander, so I'll back you until the cows come home, sweetheart. Anyway, listen, it was a wonderful start to the season, and whilst we were incredibly elated after that game, had everything. You had Pogba having a blinder, Bruno hat-trick, Greenwood getting on the score sheet. It was all great things to be happy about it. It was against someone that we dislike, Leeds. But it means nothing if we don't continue in that vein. And we need to, Southampton are in a bit of a difficult situation at the moment. I very much rate Hasenhuttl. I think he's a wonderful manager, actually, well-drilled team. And we really need to continue where we left off. It's hugely important. We want to get 6 points on the board. We always used to get frustrated by Ferguson and how badly he may have started every season. This is going against the grain here, and we need to continue going against that grain.
Yeah, I completely agree. But Kai, I'll come to you next. Obviously there's going to be a lot of confidence in this squad from the Leeds game. How important do you think that is going to be coming into a Southampton team that are a bit depleted? Obviously, they lost their first game of the season. Do you think that gives us even more of an upper hand against them?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think obviously we shouldn't be complacent, right? Because we know these things happen. We can anything can happen on the day, and as we've seen historically, besides the 9-0, I think, or 9-1 score, I think Southampton has sometimes been very tight. It's been last minute winners. It had to be a brilliant performance from a number 9 to get a hat trick. Someone's had to do something when we played them. So I think we just need to be wary of that, and because we don't play a team like Leeds all the time, because obviously there's spaces to be found over there, then it'll be slightly tougher. But I do think at the end of the day we'll beat them, because Southampton have this. They can't defend, man. That's the one thing, and we punish teams that can't defend. Like, we love it, especially that can't defend in the box. Penalties all day. Like, I am already predicting at least one pen, because that team doesn't know how to defend well. So I think it will be won by some mistakes like that if they keep turning the ball over for us, I think. So we should be reasonably confident, quietly confident, but not obviously overconfident. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into the United team and their preparation, I'll ask you, Stu, sort of a similar question. You couldn't have asked for a better first week. Does that give you the most confidence going into this game, or do you think Southampton, famously difficult customers for United, do you think that there's still a bit of that looming in your mind?
Well, I think first and foremost, for the next day after the game, coming on to the Monday as well, you kind of revel in your performance, and then you hit the reset button. So you kind of park that. It's done. It's gone. You start again, preparing for Sunday's match. And the interesting thing about Southampton is it's never an easy game of football. There's been a couple of anomalies. I mean, crikey, in the past, we've been hammered down there at the Dell on many occasions. We've been out of sight. in the first half when they weren't particularly playing well at all. So Southampton are one of those teams that will either turn up or they won't. Well, the interesting thing for me is it depends what Hasenhuttl does now, or Hasenhuttl, however you pronounce his name, because he always plays with a high-risk press. It's very, very similar to the way that Leeds play. And if he does adopt that formation again, which is primarily, believe it or not, a 4-4-2, we should be able to get in around the back of them. We should be able to hit the diagonal, which Greenwood did beautifully for his goal on Sunday. So we'll go into the teams in a bit. I don't see too many changes. But yeah, you've got to hit the reset button and you've got to kind of like, right, that's gone, park it. 3 points are in the bag. Let's start again. Say it's the first game of the season. Let's start again. So I'm looking for a similar approach.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we'll just hand the show over to you, Stu. You've sort of covered everything there.
Sorry, mate.
You've gone through my entire show plan in 2 minutes, to be fair to you. I don't know how you do it. But
Sorry,
we'll go with the United team first. Obviously, a 5-1 win against Leeds. It's not, unless you're Manchester United, you don't beat Leeds by 4 goals. I think we've learned that by now. So, Leeds and Southampton are 2 teams that are very differently set up. So I'll come to you first, Mark. Do we play the same team? Obviously, reward those players for playing as well as they did, or do you think that the team that will come up against in Southampton and their tactics will require a different set of players out there? Basically, what I'm trying to say is, do you make any changes from that squad?
No, I kind of agree with Stu, actually. I think Southampton on a normal day do play quite a high press as well, and they have to, I think, because their defence is a little bit more leaky. They let in sort of 24 more goals than we did last season, and I think we should be letting in a lot less goals than Southampton. But they had a pretty good season last season, really, up until the last few games. So I think they have to play a bit of a high press, and sometimes you have to go back to that old cliche of, do you really need to repair what doesn't need fixing? And at the moment, I think that a lot of players seem to be on form. I think we've just about maybe had enough games in pre-season in order to sort of not have tired legs like we did last season. So I think you may see 1 or 2 changes, perhaps. I think Dan James probably isn't quite as effective against someone like Southampton. I think you can run the channels a bit better against Leeds, whereas Southampton like to use their wide players, don't they? So I think that might be a considered change. Other than that, maybe Jaden Sancho might have more of an impact. You could maybe see him in replacement of James, perhaps. I think Varane, obviously, he's going to sort of integrate him into the team sort of steadily. I don't think you're going to see him necessarily hit the ground running, so to speak. And maybe you might see a cameo at some point. If we are ahead 70, 80 minutes, you might see him come up just to shore things up, just to give him a bit of a run around and get those legs moving.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, before I ask you something, Kai, I'll bring this comment up from Ugly Bear saying it's a great win for the MU women's. It's completely unrelated, but I must say it was a phenomenal win. 5-0 win against Rangers. And for more women's content, be sure to check out AFU Women's channel. It's brilliant. That's all I can say. It's brilliant. Check them out, subscribe, everything, all of that. But yeah, Kai, back to the men's team, back to the weekend game that we have at hand. I'll ask you a similar question to Mark. It's a team that played incredibly well last weekend. Do you want to see any changes to that?
Look, I don't think we'll see any changes. And the reason which I say that is because I think, if anything, what McFred has shown us is that they're quite adaptable to anything. And, well, I think it's improved over time. So if you notice, they now play in games which you win by a lot. And they also play in games the big games which are also tight. So they're showing that they're able to adapt a little bit in their way of play. If they're playing Leeds, they know exactly what to do. McTominay is like, okay, cool, I'm going to eat these guys up. I know exactly what to do. And the same thing when they're playing the other teams, when they have to sit a little bit deeper and do another type of a job. So I genuinely think Ole just likes them too, and they'll just move around because he's now found a way to make them understand exactly what the team needs to do from those two. So I think it will probably remain the same there. And I also think probably with Dan James, maybe it's just something which I've noticed, but I think he normally starts when Ole's when he's not comfortable with a certain position. So he needs someone to be safe for a while. And he normally does it for a few games in a row. It's hardly where James gets only one start and then drop the next game. He's normally kind of like, okay, the team is maybe struggling a bit and we need this, or maybe whatever this, and then he plays for a few games consecutively. And I think while Sancho is getting to grips with the Prem, because Rashford is obviously injured, so while Sancho's getting there, I think you'll see James maybe start a little bit more, and then Sancho gets a few more minutes again the next game, depending on how it's going, probably. So I don't know. I mean, we're all just predicting things, but that's my view on this one.
I've just got a very quick question for Stuart, actually. Stuart, show us your mug.
Well, it's just a
Poser mug.
Oh, well.
Starbucks stew. That's what we're going to start calling you.
Well, do I bring up the revelation from in the backroom chat or not? I don't know. I might leave that up my sleeve. And it is a revelation, guys. It is a revelation.
Stu, did you buy it or did you steal it?
No, I got a few of these.
Come on, Stu, mug. Come on, mug.
That actually looks quite a nice mug. Anyway, we're going off topic. Sorry.
we are. No, I've got a couple of them.
We're venturing into.
You've got me now.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. We're venturing into uncut territory, aren't we? Here, so we need to get back on track.
Yeah,
this is strictly tactical talk. Come on, guys, we're better than this. Stu, just before obviously that we can talk about the midfield and Jaden Sancho coming in and everything. That's all going to be covered. But just in a brief sense, I know you like to tell 10 stories when you're asked one question, but in a very brief sense, do you think that the team that battered Leeds United, I want to say that as often as possible, we battered Leeds United. Do you think they deserve to be rewarded for that performance? Another start for everyone, unchanged team, or do you think we need to respect the way that Southampton play and change the team based on that?
When you're playing at the level that we play at in the Premier League, the highest level of football, you don't deserve to be rewarded. You pick a team and you play a team that stacks up to the opposition. Whether or not you've had a great game the week before or not, rewards shouldn't come into it. Ollie should be looking at it. The coaching staff should be looking at it. What is our best 11? How do we go about beating Southampton with our best 11, and who are they? So I kind of understand your question, but no, in the Premier League, if it's a professional footballer, your reward is working hard and making the 11. So we don't know what's going to happen in training this week. I know one thing for sure. Varane won't come in. The back four will stay the same. I can actually see a switch. I can see Dan James being taken out of the equation. I can see Sancho putting in the equation, because Dan James, as good as he is at running in behind, his overall game needs a lot more. And I think against Southampton away, we're going to require a lot more presence on the ball. And we're going to require a lot more cuteness on the ball, and I don't think Dan James offers us that. As good as he did play on against Leeds last week, he's probably not the right person to put out in. Now, there's another thing as well, and he will go with McFred. There's no two ways about it. But I would have brought or would consider bringing in Donny for this game, because I think Donny van der Beek will be absolutely superb in the middle. And I would remove Scotty M, and I would hold Fred, and say to Fred, your primary role is to leave the playmaking to Donny, Pogba, and Bruno, and that's how I would work it, because they're all right actually. They're a good outfit, Southampton, on their day, and they can be a bit of a walnut, a real tough nut to crack if they're on their game. So I think the problem that Ollie had last year and the club had last year, as well as just being quite pedestrian in games, everybody knew what Ollie was going to do. Everyone knew we were going to play a 4-2-3-1. Ollie's going to get out of this mindset of going in with this 4-2-3-1, and he's got to start picking players for the teams, for the opposition. rather than, yeah, you had a great game last week. You know, it shouldn't work that way. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think you raised two very good talking points there, which I was going to move on to anyway. So it seems like no better time to move on to them now.
I've done it again, have I? Sorry, mate.
Jaden, mind reader. That's what you are. Don't apologise for your special skills, mate. Yeah, Jaden Sancho. Obviously, that's a massive talking point. We'll come on to that now. Dan James started against Leeds. I think Dan James needs to start every game against Leeds. He seems to have a bit of a vendetta against them since his move collapsed. But he played magnificently. But I think he played magnificently because Leeds' system allowed him to play well. I don't think Southampton will allow him to do that. I think Southampton, now that they've sort of been humbled by this transfer market, I think we're going to see him drop back. They're not the same team they were even last season, never mind a few seasons before. So I'll leave this question open. Obviously, Stu's just spoken, so I'll leave it open to Mark or Kai. Either one of you wants to jump in. One, do we need to see Jaden Sancho in this team? And two, I'll ask you on top of that, is he fit enough? Is he ready enough to slot straight into this team from the start?
All right, I'll go first. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time. He didn't obviously appear too much in the Euros, and it's one of those that everyone gets very excited about a player coming in for that sort of money, and they want them to be able to hit the ground running. That doesn't always happen. I think he needs to have a few more games, but I think with Southampton, they are probably better drilled than Leeds, and the real game is going to be in the middle of the park. I think Fred actually hit the nail on the head with their set pieces as well. That's going to be a real concern for us, and I think it's going to be in the middle of the park. But I think what you get with Jaden that you don't get with certainly don't get with Daniel James, and that's not a criticism. I'm trying to actually big up Sancho. Is unlocking a defence like Southampton. It's, as I said, it's not going to be through the channels where we can go against Leeds. Against Southampton, it's ever so slightly different. They're going to be coming at us, and we need to be able to have someone like Jaden that's going to be able to pick up the ball and be able to unlock the defences, come inside a little bit more, a bit like what Rashford does, I suppose. But obviously he's out at the moment. Martial, I don't know what if he's going to have an involvement. I would have thought so. He actually looked quite strong the other day. But yeah, I think with Jaden, he's going to be able to test their wide men, and I think that just on the back of what Stu said, actually, I don't necessarily agree with this 4-2-3-1 thing that you've just picked up on. I've actually changed my viewpoint on it recently. I watched a couple of programs the other day, and I've been sort of banging on about all summer of 4-3-3. I think that's kind of dead and buried now. I think that actually a 4-2-3-1 is the way that teams are going forward now. I think City play it, Real Madrid play it, PSG play it. And it doesn't mean that you got two sitting defensive midfielders. You've got one, and then you've got that transition in between. I think Stu and I said about this the other day. So I think that will be what we see. But again, I totally agree with you about Donny van der Beek. I think this will be actually a very good game for him to play, for him to show his instrumental capability. And actually, I'd probably, even though he made an appearance the other day, I probably would have Matic against a team like Southampton that are going to try and dictate in midfield. I feel that Matic would be that better holding midfielder that's going to be able to take possession, and even if he does go down the left-hand side like Stu dislikes, and I totally get that, I think that he's going to be able to dictate that passing ability from that point.
Sorry, 1 second, Stu. I'll pass it on to you. I'm just going to say, you've all very, very good at guessing what my show plan is. So I've got an entire section dedicated to midfielders coming straight up. So Stu, if you want to jump in directly about Sancho, be my guest and save all your talk about centre midfielders for 5 minutes time.
Yeah. All I was going to say is that Mark's absolutely right. one of the things where Southampton are very good is their set pieces. So we need to be very, very careful that we don't give away any stupid free kicks around the 25-yard area. And we've got to be careful, certainly if De Gea's playing, that we're not overloaded immediately. Because what they did last year very good was crowd and shroud De Gea quite well. And he hasn't got that bulk, or he's kind of frightened. I don't know what it is, but he won't get in there and muscle his way to catch the ball. So we need to be very, very careful with those. We all know what Ward-Prowse can do. With regards to Sancho, I think you've got to start him at some point. And I think Southampton's the perfect team to go at. I think you'll get a lot of space. They do attack well with their fullbacks, but I think they'll get a lot of space. They conceded a couple of tap-ins, I think, if I'm not mistaken, against Everton. I know Calvert-Lewin's goal was a bit of a tap-in. My favourite. He was in the 6-yard area. Bang, in you go. You know, run around the goal, arm in the air. Thank you very much. So I think we can get at them. But if we get on them at the diagonal, we get on them down the wings, there's no point crossing the ball in because, you know, Greenwood's not going to get his head on there at this point in time. Bless him. But with the ability of Bruno, Pogba, Sancho, Greenwood, if Donny plays as well, and, you know, we'll talk about midfield later, but Matic is a shout, then I think we'll be quite expansive. And I just don't see Southampton coping with us. But our main areas are make sure we don't give any needless free kicks in and around the box and keep the corners to a minimum.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with you. Kai, before we move on to the midfielders, you got anything to add about the wide men?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just want to just make a quick point regards, you know, especially with the formations, this 4-2-3-1. I think essentially, I think Ole's found his most preferred formation, which kind of explains who he is, something which he can sort of play around with. And he can, you know, because he's always playing around with the formation. It's not exactly how you see it all the time. So I think I would basically say that's what describes him. That's his thing. So I think we should just, you know, sometimes just allow that's his thing. Because, you know, other guys like Conte, if he comes in, we're probably going to a back three. If someone else comes in, you're probably going to another formation. So I think that's probably what defines how Ole wants to play for kind of forever. I don't know if it's you know, like you're saying as well, it doesn't mean that we defend. It doesn't, you know, like we see Scott and Fred in the last game, you know, they, you know, sometimes make attacking runs, make forward runs because they, you know, they can move around. That's the adaptability I was talking about at the beginning. So I don't know, I just feel like he's always going to play around that thing, around that formation specifically. But yeah. And about Sancho as well. I think he needs some time. He'll get his minutes, I think, at the beginning, because as long as we're winning, then there's no need to absolutely rush him. And we know that Ole likes to sort of bed in his signings nice and slowly. So I think if we're winning, we won't see a massive rush for Sancho in there. And yeah, that's bad.
So are you saying we don't start Sancho then? We start in place of Sancho then? Who?
I'm saying what I would probably do is start him, but what will probably happen, I think, is Dan James will get another start. Because also, if you watch it, Dan James, you're right, he lacks a lot of the basic things. Like if he was really good at just the really basic thing, like passing a ball, bang, really quick to that guy, and then making the right run, or just deciding, oh, let me look up quickly. Okay, one guy in the box. Let me not put it in. I'm just going to stop for a second and start again. Or, you know, just those small little things, which if they became a part of his thing and he just focused on that, then yeah. But he doesn't at the moment. So it means that we lose possession a lot of the times that he gets the ball, and he makes the wrong decision a lot of the times, you know, but he still does, I think, the bare minimum for Ole in terms of the rest of the game. So it really doesn't affect us completely, you know, in some of these games, I think. So I think he'll start again because he is the safety net, like I was saying. Because I think Ole will wake up and say, okay, dude, I need you to do this. Please just do it like this, and just do it like this and this and that. And Dan James will be like, oh, God, I play for United. Oh, my God, I will do it. And then he'll do it.
That's a really good point, that is, Kai. And that's one of the issues I've got with Dan James. As a person, as a player, I don't have an issue with him, but as a man, I do, because there are occasions, and I talk about this all the time, and I've been on shows with you, Cole, where I talk about this all the time. I talk about player responsibility all of the time because it's really important. A vital part of being a footballer, a professional footballer, is your responsibility for your teammates on that game, on that day. And you can't afford to carry a player that is a bit of a yes sir, no sir, yes sir kind of guy. But what me and James were talking about in last week's show was Dan James's ability to do a lot for the team off the ball, and that's where he is very, very good. His positional play, being able to drag either a centre half out the way or a fullback out the way, he's brilliant at it. A lot of the fans don't see that part of the game. But you can't be a yes man at this level of football. You've got to be able to say, you know what, I can see a gap. I'm going to fucking go for it. I'm going to see where it takes me. You've got to have that balls, those cojones to really impose yourself on a game of football. And that's Dan James's problem.
But you know what? I could also then, I mean, just looking at the other side of Dan James in terms of that, I also believe that it takes kind of a lot for you to put on the shirt of United consistently while like this thing, that a lot of people are just, saying a lot of things which are a bit over the top, right? Because you wouldn't walk in the street and look at someone and say, listen, you're shit. You'd never do that. And there's a lot of people that do a lot of that stuff. And through everything he's been through, obviously everyone goes through stuff, obviously. But if you look at him, he doesn't look like a guy who will shrug off everything and be like, nah, I'm the man. It's cool. Just stop. He looks like someone who would be broken by certain things. And I think it's important to look at those aspects. And I think that's also a part of his, yes, I'll do that, Ole, because it is, you need just one in the club. Just one guy who's just going to be like, all right, cool. No, all right, cool, I'll do that. Like almost for Jose Mourinho. One guy that will just run through one brick wall for him. And you'll be like, why is he starting again? But you just know it's pretty much because Mourinho just says, please do this. Cool, I'll do it. Or someone will say, Ole will say, do this, I'll do this. So, and that's just my thing with him. I think it's two sides. It's one that you say that arrogance to be a United player to say, okay, I am the one, versus the one which says, oh my gosh, I am at United. I need to work super hard to please everyone and whatever, because I know as well he's not technically gifted like that. So he knows that immediately when they say, okay, guys, we have to transfer list some guys, that he's nervous. Okay, I need to go check. Am I one of those guys? Which is quite different. Right. So I think it's kind of two of them. Mentally, he's quite strong with it, But like you're saying, on the player aspect, to say, no, I play for United, like, look at me, pass to me, or I'll make the run, then I think that is the true a downside to that.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. It was a quality conversation. I'm sure Connor can get that clipped up for a clip at some point. But you've obviously discussed in length the wingers. I think that we need not say any more on that. But it briefly mentioned before I abruptly cut you all off about the midfield. Now, listen, I thought Fred and McTominay was sublime against Leeds. I really think they were, but a lot like Dan James, I think it was a game which very much suited them. Now, in my personal opinion, I think one of them needs to make way for Donny van der Beek against Southampton, especially with the fact that we're going to be on the front foot. We're going to need to be breaking lines, and I don't think that that's what Fred and McTominay can do, even still. Obviously, I agree with whoever it was that said that they're both adapting their game. I think we're definitely seeing improvements in everything with these two, but I still don't think they're at that level. So I'll come to you first, Mark. Do you want to see these two playing again? Obviously, defensively, incredible, these two as a partnership, but we're not going to need much defensive work, are we, against Southampton?
Well, I think we do, but I think we sort of mentioned it, I alluded to it earlier, and I think everybody's kind of said the same thing. I'm not quite sure it's the game that's suited for them. The only thing I will say is I thought McTominay defensively from set pieces against Leeds was absolutely wonderful. And we could miss his height and presence if set pieces are a problem. I think against Southampton, that's one of their kind of ways of trying to overturn a team, isn't it? So I think that could well be a problem, and McTominay could be needed. But I think that there are sort of in my opinion, everyone seems to talk about Leeds like this wonderful playing team, but I just don't personally see it all the time. But I think Southampton are well drilled. I think they are very good in the middle of the park. I think Romeo, whatever his surname is, is a very good defensive midfielder, very good with the ball. Obviously, ex-Barcelona. And I think that Ward-Prowse is also very good with the ball. And I think that someone like Donny van der Beek would be perfect for this game, because he likes to dictate the play. He likes to sort of fill in those pockets and look 2 or 3 passes in front of him. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Matic would be perfect as well, or Fred. I think that something we saw from Fred against Leeds at the weekend was just the simple things being done right. He got the simple passes right. He closed down correctly. He knew when to close down and when to hold back correctly. Sometimes at my frustrations with Fred but he was brilliant. But with Matic, I think that he's able to. We need someone that's going to be able to pick up the ball and ensure that those long or short balls are correctly distributed. And I think that Matic will do that better than anybody else, which will allow Van der Beek to get forward and be that kind of number 8/number 10 going forward. You know what I mean? So I just personally feel that those two would be better suited. But Ollie will do what he does.
Can I ask? Sorry, Mark. Can I ask a question about that you just mentioned with Matic? Because I thought there was a bit of a drop off when he came on with Sancho on the weekend last week. I don't know if anyone else thought, because it seemed like we lost a bit of control in that game at the time which those 2 subs were made, which was weird, because if Sancho was coming on the pitch, we probably should have attacked a little bit more. But I just know he was a little bit ponderous with his movement and all of that. And I just want to get everyone's take, because is it a gamble playing Matic? I mean, when I say gamble, hear me out. I just mean because you're not getting 100% every single time because of obvious reasons. And that's not because he's bad, but it's because of obvious reasons. So is it becoming like one of those where you say, if you play him, do you know exactly what you're going to get? Or are you hoping for him to put on one of the Rolls-Royce performances all the time?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it, with Matic? I think that we've all come to the conclusion now, and I think it's very apparent that he can't really play 2 games in a row. And obviously it is a bit of a concern that he hasn't had, too many minutes in pre-season, perhaps not as many as others. However, I thought it was the wrong decision at the weekend. I wouldn't have brought on Matic. I think that we didn't need to shore anything up. I think Matic is one of those where you just shore things up. If one thing that I can say about Mourinho is he would correctly use a player like Matic. I'm not sure that Ollie does so well. So I wouldn't have brought him on myself. And obviously that does pose a question as to whether he can do those 2 games in a row. But I think he can. It's early in the season. He's had a lot of time off. And as I said, I think that because he's able to distribute and retain and pass the ball that much better than any of our midfielders other than Pogba and even Bruno, actually. He's much better than Bruno. I think that he would be the player to bring in. I could be wrong. Maybe it is Fred and McTominay. And as I said earlier, I think that Ollie will make his choice and we'll all have an opinion about it. But we'll have to wait and see.
Well, you see, Kai, I was of the opinion with you and Mark, really, because I said it in the review show that there's no way that Matic should have come on. He should have brought on Donny van der Beek, given Donny a bit of a run. The interesting thing you noticed about Sancho was that we'd stopped the attacking process at that point. We were 5-1 up, the game was up, and both Sancho and Martial both suffered from that. Because we weren't as aggressive, we weren't as expansive with what we should have been. Really, we should have gone for blood and maybe scored an extra 2 and opened up the season 7-1 winners. But anyway, that's beside the point. With regards to look, our central midfield is always going to be a talking point until we decide as a club to either bite the bullet and go and buy a central midfield player that we all agree we need. If not, then we are stuck with these 3. but Ollie's got to find a formation that works. And I think that we could stick with a single player now. I don't think we need two central midfield players. I think we need a single player. And I think the player for me, well, it's a toss-up between Fred and McTominay. I would actually play Fred against Southampton because I find him a little bit more dynamic. I get Mark's point of view about the height of McTominay, but Donny van der Beek, if he comes in, he's about 6'2" himself, and he's 6 foot. He's a tall player. But when you look at the way Southampton play, they only play with two players in midfield. They play with a holding player, which is Romeo, and Mark was right to point him out because he is not a fashionable footballer in any stretch of the imagination. But what he does do, he plays the central midfield role perfectly. He gets it and he delivers it. He snaps into a tackle, he wins it and he moves it. He breaks up the plays, an enforcer. He's a pain in the arse.
He's also elusive with his movement. He can turn you real quick. He's really good with that. Yeah,
he can.
And Stu, what about with Varane? Does that make a difference with a top-class defender that can cover for Maguire, so they push the line forward? Does that? I mean, I was just thinking about it. If it makes any sort of a difference with what happens with our midfield and our intent, rather.
Yeah, we would do. On my very first show, I think I made a point about the spine of any football team, and I spoke about the goalkeeper, the two centre halves, and the central midfield player. And somebody like Ndidi in there, or Basuma, or Brozovic, and Neves, we can go on forever in terms of types of players. Kind of gives you that solidity, which we've been slightly lacking. Not that Lindelof and Maguire aren't a good partnership; they probably are, and in fact. I would consider that if we'd had a really good specialist central midfielder in there, the type of ilk of player that I've been speaking about, you would have seen a more solidified back unit. De Gea doesn't offer. I love De Gea. He's a great shot stopper, but he's not an aggressive goalkeeper. So if you've got an aggressive goalkeeper like Henderson that will play his 18-yard box, you've got two solid centre halves and a central midfield. It almost sets you up. And it enables you then to play more free-flowing football. And if we are caught out of possession, you've got a good holding player, you've got trust in your centre halves, you've got trust in your fullbacks, you've got trust in your goalkeeper, who can act as one unit. It does make us a lot more difficult to break down. So what Varane will offer us, and I you probably don't know, Kai, but I wasn't overly enthused by the Varane signing, only because... playing in the Spanish league for 10 years and playing alongside a master of deception that is Sergio Ramos and another master of deception, which is Pepe, it enables you to have a more weaker game because you've got a tougher player by the side of you who's going to win all your area battles, going to do all the nasty, dirty work, like we saw in the Champions League where he took out when he took out Salah. You can imagine Ramos in the changing room, Zidane's making his little speech. What we're going to do about Salah? Ramos is the type of player that will go, "Don't worry, boss, he's mine."
I got him.
Yeah. But 15 minutes later, he's gone, isn't he? So.
But I think what I could say to that is, there's because I did also watch a lot of La Liga for the last 15 years. But I mean, I was a big fan of all the big players, and sometimes it's all that we had on TV, just that one game, and. Sometimes the one thing that you notice is with Madrid, defensively, they've always been shite. Let's like real honestly, they've always been actually terrible for a team that's that good. The amount of times they get caught in La Liga, they win the game 4-2, but they get caught out and all of this stuff. And a lot of the times it was because Ramos's positioning isn't that great because he actually threw caution to the wind. He's like, it's fine. I'm a master of deception, and this is what I do. And if we need a goal, I go and I score. But you know what, Rafa? This is you, bro, at the back here. So sometimes you're pushed completely, and the pace of Varane is really what then complemented it because you get them out of trouble a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So it worked. It was a good combination because it worked. I know Ramos is this big figure and is all of that, right? But there's very few things besides aggression, which I think Ramos can do in terms of a defensive sense, which, Maguire can't do. So, I mean, aerially type of thing, right? So, they can both head the ball. all of this stuff. I think Ramos is a lot of things which he's better than Maguire, but I think the core defensive attributes, you can kind of say, okay, yeah, they can probably do that job to a certain extent. But I think with Varane, I think there is a balance, because I know that he did play with someone that is very good and someone that balances him. But Real Madrid would have been in dire straits if they didn't have somebody solid that that actually could run. Even Pepe could run to a certain extent, because Ramos needed some cover there, doing some some stuff during the game. So I think I do think that they were equal in that sense. So I don't think he's that much of a liability, but I do get your concerns, of course, because he did play in another league. I'll say another league. I won't say a worse league. I'll just say another league, which is totally different. But yeah, I think if we have a good spell, if he starts off and where the team is doing well, then at least someone will have some confidence to push that way. So
I think you're right, Kat. I will say one thing though: the unveiling on Saturday. Wow, I mean,
that was class. Come on,
it just got to me anyway. I don't care. I didn't care about my misgivings or whatever. I was just, wow, what an unveiling.
You never do, Stu. You never do.
No,
and
yes, and I got really excited, and I haven't been excited about I've been excited about transfers, but I'm pissed off with these fucking fairy unveilings of a player. Get on with it.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Hold your fucking shirt up. Come on.
Yeah, because how awesome is it that he did the unveiling and then they used the video footage from the unveiling in the Twitter video, which everyone likes. How cool is that? It actually happened. Whoever was there, thank you very much for cheering. It was beautiful. Sorry, James, we took over your show.
Sorry, dude.
That's all good. The less talking I have to do, the better. I hate talking. So thank you very much, you two, for that. But I think about 20 minutes ago, I probably did want to talk about Fred for a little bit, from what I remember, if my memory serves me right. But yeah, I think going back to, I want to see Van der Beek starting against Southampton, and I think the player next to him has to be Fred, because I don't think Van der Beek quite offers you that energy that you need, especially with a Ward-Prowse and a Romeo in midfield up against them, especially with the front line that Southampton have got as well. I think you need energy, and while you'll probably lose a bit of discipline with Fred, which can come back to bite you, I think if you can keep Fred in the right position at all times, which with a little bit of guiding might not be too hard. I think he's probably in the form of his career right now. A brilliant Copa America, 2 goals in 2 games, albeit one of those games wasn't official. But if you can have his energy, his defensive ability, and just that aggression in the midfield to break things up, you can allow Van der Beek, Fernandes, Pogba a solid base to flourish on. There's no reason why we need to be playing 2 defensive midfielders here, especially when Southampton, obviously we'll come on to their setup very shortly, but they play a 2-man midfield. There's no reason why we should be playing 2 defensive midfielders to battle them. I completely agree with this. I as much as I enjoyed Kai's run, it was funny to watch him move once every 30 seconds.
Absolutely.
What happened?
You're lagging a little bit.
It's still going on. You move maybe once every 10 seconds. It's quite enjoyable.
Oh, really?
But you sound okay. You just sound a bit robotic. But
oh, Jesus. I apologize.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, we'll move on to Southampton then. In a very basic sense, their last performance against Everton, 3-1 loss. It was a solid 4-4-2. There was no real deviation from that. There was 4 defenders, naturally, 2 centre midfielders, 2 wingers, 2 natural strikers. There's no other way of interpreting that, really, from what I can see. So, just straight off the bat, it didn't seem to work against Everton. This isn't the best Everton team we've ever seen. I'll come to you first, Mark. How do we get around that formation? Obviously, a bog standard 4-4-2. How does that shape up against our 4-2-3-1, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, well, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head a moment ago, and I'm going to sort of retract what I said about Matic to a certain extent. No, hear me out a second. So you're absolutely right. I think it does need a bit of energy, but I think my worry with Fred is too many times in the past he hasn't been disciplined. He hasn't done the simple things right. And that just, always sits with me as a little bit of a worry. But I absolutely agree with you. And you have convinced me otherwise, that if he does go in with the form that he had in the last game, I think his energy and tenacity is exactly probably what we need. So yeah, I mean, when we talk about the 4-4-2 formation, it's not something we see a lot of these days. And I think that Stu sort of hit the nail on the head, really, that there's only 2 men in midfield. So I think that, again, as I mentioned earlier, with winning the battle in midfield, I think if you've got 2 and a third Bruno, possibly Pogba sort of tracking back, that's going to sort of flood that midfield, isn't it? And give us a real sort of chance to retain that possession and not allow them to play how we want to. But as I mentioned earlier as well, I think that it concerns me with not concerns me, but we have to watch out for their wide men. With a conventional 4-4-2, you do see that kind of width far more often than something that we don't tend to have so much these days. And Luke Shaw defensively is very good. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, as we all know, is very good. So hopefully we'll be able to cope with that. But I think that we kind of said this earlier, set pieces is the biggest thing for me. As long as we don't give too many fouls away against someone like Southampton and Ward-Prowse, I think that we will be okay. But I did see an improvement in that, and I'm really hoping, as I said to Stu in the review in the last show, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I felt that defensively from set pieces we look far better, and I'm hoping that does continue, and that is because of the new set piece coach, and we can do that against Southampton. Is Kai all right? I'm a bit worried about him now. He's laggy and laughing.
Sorry,
Yeah,
it's just so
so-
funny. It's so funny because I conditioned myself, right, a long time ago, that the first game I watch, the one thing which I'll look out for is set pieces no matter what, because there's some guy who's new at set pieces. And I promise you, every time we headed the ball away, I was like, it's working. So I don't get you, bro. Like, I don't know whether it's actually working or not. I'm just like, well.
Well, I kind of
Yeah.
said the other day, Kai, about this Ramsey guy, the set piece coach. Everybody's babbling on about it. And I'm like, if you need to tell a 28-year-old fucking captain of Manchester United, professional footballer all his life, where to stand on a fucking corner, for God's sake, you should be in the stands, man. You should be in the stands. If you can't organise a fucking corner, it's anyway. That was my own thing. So I was having a bit of a giggle because when Luke Shaw swung the corner in for Maguire's header against Everton, I think Twitter went fucking berserk. Eric Ramsey's fucking set piece, it's working. And I said, all he did was swing his left fucking foot. The ball went over. Maguire went like that. The end.
And
Really?
That actually brings up a good point, Stu, because I believe if Maguire just scored at least like one more of those headers, which he gets contact to with every single corner we have, like it's literally every corner he hits.
One more.
Like,
he had about 78 of them.
Yeah, like can you imagine how Ramos he would be? Like we're talking about Ramos just now. He would be the most Ramos guy if he just one more a game. Like if even 6 corners a game, just put one a game in, and he'll be like top scorer corners.
Oh no, amazing! Sorry, Mark, I'm not taking a piss about it. I'm just saying.
No, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
I just find the concept of a set piece coach.
You are absolutely right. I won't go into too much, poor James, but
Sorry, James.
It is a bit of a wayward thing, isn't it? That you're not really used to, and it's only because we sort of, are passionate about our club and like to look in and get involved, and obviously they're given to us. So you have to take it with a bit of pinch of salt, but also hope that it does do something. I just feel that in our first game against Leeds, it was that much better. So I hope that's because
you're absolutely right. It was. Sorry, James, we're at it again, aren't we, mate? He's going to kick us off. We're gone, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you lot don't mind staying till midnight, we'll be fine. But But just one more thing on the formation. Now, obviously, I made the thumbnails. I don't know if any of you are aware. I'm very proud of these incredible pieces of art.
No, you
But
should be, mate. Very good.
there's a
before you
reason.
go on, who's this Joe O'Neill character?
I'm not even bringing up his
Thank
comment
you.
at all. I don't want to see any of that until he's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, there's a reason why I included Moussa Djenepo on this thumbnail. He's obviously West Ham's left midfielder. Not West Ham, sorry, Southampton. Jesus, where did that come from?
Yes.
In this rigid 4-4-2. Now, they started against Everton with him and Walcott on either wing. Now, obviously, Walcott's a little bit past it, but there's no doubt there's talent there. Does this affect the way United set up with their wingers? Are we going to need more, work-heavy wingers to track these back and deal with these? And if so, I'll ask you first, Stu. Does this open the door for Dan James making a start again? Because he does obviously have that work rate that we're talking about.
So I saw a little bit of the Everton game, and so I saw a little bit of this Djenepo guy. One thing I noticed was that Southampton have got either a completely different back four, or they've got at least 3 players, new players that didn't play last season because they lost Bertrand, didn't they? They lost Vestergaard, and I can't remember who played right back for Southampton last season. So I know they've brought in at least 2.
They played Kyle Walker-Peters, but he was injured towards the end of the season. I don't know if he's back yet, though. He didn't play. They brought in Livramento from Chelsea, who is a bit unknown at the minute.
So looking at their back four, you can see why they probably conceded 3 goals against Everton, because that's a difficult task, no matter who you are, to play away against a decent attacking side. Certainly when you got the physicality of Calvert-Lewin, it's a difficult task. So I think that will work in our favour. I really do. With our fluid front 3, whoever he picks on Sunday, it is Sunday, isn't it? Yeah, whoever he picks on Sunday. Yeah. I think that'll cause Southampton all sorts of problems. With this Djenepo, what I saw, and I could I could be completely off base here, but I saw the makings are a little bit of a headless Adama Traore at times. That's what I saw. I think there's bags of talent in there. I really do. And I think there's bags of skill. But if you remember Walcott in his day, in his early days, very raw. This guy seems to be quite raw and probably will lack the finishing touch for the first part of the season. So I know he was quite rapid. He's quite direct. Will he hurt us? I think Wan-Bissaka will be doing this, quite frankly. If I was playing right back, I'd be loving it.
Listen, the reason I bring him up it sort of tunes into the next thing I was going to talk about. I'll bring you into this conversation, Kai. Now, I'll ask you this.
First.
Well, once I don't think he'll ever run freeze, really. But
I'm unfrozen. I'm here.
But anyway, Kai, obviously, Djenepo running at a defence, it's a bit like Jack Grealish. The more you run, the more free kicks you're going to win. And we obviously spoke about set pieces with Southampton earlier. This brings in what I want to talk about in one of their danger men. We'll bring another one in later, but one of their danger men is James Ward-Prowse from these set pieces. Now, is this something we really need to be wary of? Obviously, he scored a free kick against us last season. Eventually, we won the game, but he scored a free kick against us again it was Old Trafford, I think it was, when we beat them 3-2 again. But he set up a goal last season from the corner as well. With the same back line, assuming Varane isn't going to be playing, how do we deal with these sort of deliveries into the box? Because Djenepo will win Southampton a lot of free kicks in a lot of dangerous areas as well.
Yeah. I think, look, with like Stu was alluding to before, with set pieces, like step number 1 is just concentration. Like, is every single person doing their job? Because generally what you find is most set pieces just wither away, or they get actually cleared away, or someone wins the ball. It's not every set piece that someone scores in, because a lot of the times the guys are concentrated and they're like, okay, cool, the ball's coming over here, we got to go this way, you got to be aggressive. And then it's that one time which someone switches off and then you're like, oh gosh. So I think the first thing is we just have to make sure that we're concentrated with every single set piece, because you can't get rid of them. You can't go around the game saying, I can't concede a free kick. A lot of the times, a free kick is stupid to concede, but a lot of the times it's necessary because it's a tackle. If you don't put your leg in, then he probably plays the pass, does a 1-2, and he's gone. There may be other events that happen, and that's the only reason why players, go in. Either right of blood, or they say, okay, I need to do something over here, and sometimes it's a foul. So I think, it would be, I think it would be remiss for the players to go in thinking, okay, we've got to step on eggshells over here. I just think they need to make the right decisions, and not worry too much about wherever it's, the free kick is conceded. Okay, fine. It's a special thing to score, those free kicks from, that Ward-Prowse scores from outside the box. But also he scores a whole lot of them against United as well. Like, he just saves them for us and then he just bangs them in. And it's almost inevitable. Every single time Ward-Prowse steps up against United, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely a goal, because I'm just like, yeah, well, he always hits it perfect against United. And then the next game, he can't hit 5 perfect ones in the game and he can't score one. And then, so it's a free kick. If you have technique, you'll get it right at some stage as a numbers game. But yeah, I just don't think I think it's obviously an issue in terms of the fact that he has the ability to do it. But unfortunately, it's one of those abilities which he can't really stop too much, because it happens once once it's happened. So once the foul, and it can happen to anybody on the pitch as well. So I think, yeah, I don't know. We shouldn't be too worried about it. But when it comes to defending them, I think that is the job which will always be required of you to do. So we have to be worried about that, and just making sure we stick to our man, the way that we defend against the hybrid man mark plus zonal thing that we do. Whatever it is, we've got to make sure we pay attention and do it right, I think.
This is the trouble with set pieces and free kicks is you've got to be disciplined in any game of football, and Ollie's got to look at it. He's got to turn around to whoever's playing in midfield when we're running back and we're chasing a player, not to get caught up with the tangle of legs and not to try and drag him back, which is what a player will automatically try and do. The best way to do it is to get your arm around him and kind of like just harry him with your arm. Don't touch him, but harry him so you push him away from where you need it to be. And what's happening is, and you would have seen it a lot last season, lads, McTominay, Fred, when they're chasing back, they're grappling. And that's when the free kicks are given. And we need to try and avoid that. And that's where Ollie should be saying to them, look, lads, if you're caught wrong side, get back as quickly as you can, but you should be beckoning your your centre half out if there's room to try and hold him up. It's a big problem for us, that is, unfortunately. It's one of those where if you don't stamp it out, then players get wise to it. This is why Jack Grealish wins so many fouls. People get wise to it. He goes in, he goes down like a bit of a girl because he's quite lightweight and he's looking for free kicks. Now, a good thing about Romeo, he won't look for a free kick because he'll just come and take you. He likes the physicality. He likes the one-on-one. He loves it. Ward-Prowse is a little bit more dainty. He's a fabulously talented footballer, and he knows that when they're advanced into the 25 yards away from goal, that's his area. That's his area of expertise. And Southampton realise that they can kind of make ways and they can win free kicks and score goals. So we must, as a team, be completely wary of that, because if you're not, you're just falling into a bear trap. And that's what Hasenhuttl did. He also, if you remember, away at Southampton, he crowded out, as I said earlier, he crowded out De Gea. I think it was De Gea, wasn't it, in goal at the time? So he crowded out De Gea because he knows these are all weak points. So this is where player discipline comes into, and the coaches and the managers have got to drill that into the players. Let's not be rash. Let's not just dive in, because if you give a free kick out of there, you get a free shot at goal to a player as talented as Ward-Prowse. It's not good. So as Kai quite rightly said, Ward-Prowse always saves his free kicks for us. So that's what I would be doing if I was Ollie. I would be drumming that into the players and the squad for this game.
I absolutely agree with you, Stu. I'm just going to jump in there a minute. Actually, I think that this is why I regard Hasenhuttl as actually a very good coach. Let's not forget he was at RB Leipzig and did a great job there. And this is what we don't often see with teams, that are so-called underdogs. I think that he pinpoints those weaknesses incredibly well. It's no coincidence that obviously James Ward-Prowse, who's very good at free kicks, has scored a number of them in the last few seasons against us. That's because that's what they were targeting. A bit like Bruno will run inside the box and grab fouls. Grealish, as Stu said, if they are able to get those opportunities, they will utilise and take advantage of those things that are presenting itself. And I think that that's something, United, even still, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, I feel that United defensively are actually far better than they were even 6 months ago. And I don't feel that they may try to take advantage of that, but I don't think that's going to be so much of a problem this time. And it's going to be a tough one, but I think that's what Hasenhuttl does well. He does target as an underdog those weaknesses in team, and we need to just be aware of that. And I think that Henderson could be a good shout as well. I think, as we've said so many times, he's much more commanding, and I think that he will give something that Southampton won't be able to find a weakness in.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question mentally as well for Southampton? Watching United this performance in the last game, also looking at the players which they still have to come in, and then looking at their own performance, fact that they also lost. Do you guys really think that they may come and play their game plan as normal and just execute what they normally would? Or do you think you might actually say, this is United and they're pretty dominant at the moment, let's set up pretty differently? I mean, what do you guys think Hasenhuttl will do in that case?
I'll jump in here straight away.
What we're doing or not?
Because I think it's something that I had in my notes, but it wasn't something I was particularly eager to cover, was their pressing game. Obviously, Hasenhuttl brought that in massively. Southampton were a really good pressing team up until, when they were first in the league last season, up until like sort of Christmas, and then they suddenly dropped off, ended up finishing in the bottom half. But I don't think we're going to see that this season. I think this team is very shell-shocked. They've lost their best centre-half in Vestergaard, their best player in Danny Ings, and they're coming off a streak of horrendous form in the last 6 months. I think this is very much a team who are just trying to get their feet back under the ground. So I don't think that Southampton team that we beat 3-2, I don't think we're really going to see that again today. At the weekend, sorry. I think it'll be more of a usual away team coming to Old Trafford. I think they'll sit off, try and protect this 0-0 as often as they can. They'll bring in their attackers, which I'm going to move on to next, unless anyone else wants to jump in. But they'll try and bring those into the game sort of as and when they can. Also, I don't know what anyone else thinks. Feel free to sort of jump on the back of that.
I would say that the most dangerous thing you can do as a football team is try and reverse what you would normally do. And from my point of view, if I was Ralph and I was in their changing room, look, you can either roll over and have your belly tickled, is what I'll be saying to the players, or you can get on with it. You can pull your big boy pants up and get out there and play football, because it doesn't matter the opposition. You've got a chance of winning. When that first whistle blows, it's 50-50 until the game evolves and it finishes, and then there's either a winner or a draw. And so, Southampton should look to play the way that they play their game. Define it just a little bit, refine it a little bit, but ultimately you've got to set your stall out and you've got to go for it. So I would think they will come at us and do what they would normally do and see where it takes them. Because they'll win more than they lose, Southampton will this year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much fair enough. But we'll move on to the final talking point of Southampton. We're obviously over the hour mark. We've still got 16 people watching somehow. Thank you for staying with us. I'll bring up the final point. Obviously, as I said, their attack, Che Adams and Adam Armstrong, which started up top against Everton. Now, I think we're going to focus in on Che Adams, as Karthik has kindly provided us this XG map.
Wow.
Liz, Stu, I was watching the show back last week that Karthik hosted, and you were very much in the conversation of XG. So, do you want to talk to us about what this graph means, if you can interpret it? I think I can just about get to grips with it, but do you want to try and talk us through it and what it means?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of XG maps, as I think I mentioned. What it showed last week was how static and easy to mark our friend Mr. Bamford was, and I was proved correct. What this shows is that Che Adams is more of a 18-yard box player, so he doesn't particularly focus. If you look at his heat map, he doesn't particularly focus at any points, but he does play the middle part of the 18-yard box rather than the wider side. And when he does drift wide, he drifts wider to the right, which is where he gets his shots in. But the interesting thing for me is, and I talk about it all the time, lads, and you'll be smiling at me, I know, he plays the 6-yard area very, very well. He's dangerous within the 6-yard box. And this could well be an issue for us. That's where he gets a lot of his goals. And so from my point of view, if I was marking him, I'd try and keep him outside the 6-yard box and around the penalty area as much as I can. He's not particularly quick, so he's not going to have lightning pace to darting behind us. I think the other fellow, I can't remember his name, who plays, Armstrong, is it, who plays alongside him? I think he's a bit quicker. But he'll shoot.
Blackburn,
Yeah, but he'll shoot as well. And what this XG map will show you is he'll shoot mainly again on the right side, so he's right-footed. He only takes one shot out the area, so interesting. But I don't really agree with XG. I don't know what you guys think about it, but he doesn't really set my world alight.
Well, I'll jump in. I'll say, sort of judging by this graph, it's a graph obviously of a poacher. I think that's what we can grab from that.
6 yards. Yeah.
It's looking at the number of dots on here. Obviously, the green dots are the goals, the shots that have gone in. The bigger the dot, the more XG, etc., etc. There's a lot of dots on that page. It's not the graph of a prolific striker. Now, he scored 9 goals last season. That's respectable, but I think I'll open this up to everyone. But in my personal opinion, if we can keep Che Adams out of the box, if we can keep the play out of our box, I think we're going to need to be more worried about Adam Armstrong in behind with the pace that he possesses than possibly Che Adams grabbing a goal. Now, obviously, with the way United play, there is a possibility for teams to get in behind, get in the box and that sort. But I think we need to go. We need to go to Southampton and play on the front foot for the best possible chance of winning. I'll leave that open to you. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
sorry, Mark.
Sorry, Kai. Sorry, bro.
No, go ahead.
I love that terminology, start on the front foot, and I think that's exactly what we need to do against the side like Southampton. I agree with your points about Che Adams, but what I will say is I feel that Che Adams is a much better player next to a player like Danny Ings, who they've lost. Okay, so Che Adams took a little while to sort of be integrated into that team. It took a long time to really show his versatility, and I feel that without someone like Danny Ings that he can play off as a target man, it's going to be very difficult for him to potentially get behind the lines, get past the defence, get into spaces within the area, and I think that could work in our favour. And that's what I wanted to say about that.
I just want to say on top of that, side note, guys, could this be the first time that we play Southampton and Shane Long doesn't come on for 15 minutes of shithouses? Does he still play?
Always makes the periods, doesn't he? You never know. It's another 9-0. We seem to forget this.
Is he still on there?
I think he's gone. I think he moved somewhere else, Shane Long.
He wasn't on the bench against Everton. I'm just looking now, so that there is hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think he moved or something. But I think the player that looks most like, or that plays most like it, is Timo Werner. They're so similar, Shane Long and Timo Werner. Don't clip that, please. What were we talking about before this?
The XG.
The XG. The lab. Oh, Shay.
Yeah, man.
No, I just wanted to say what I noticed about Shay is Shay Adams is quite good with dragging defenders out of position and all of that, because he's quite tenacious. He moves around, so he's a little bit more like mobile like that, and I think that's probably what he'll be used for, to try and maybe make space, make space for like the runs in behind, like you were saying. So I think we probably need to look out for that. But like you said, prolific goal scorer or not, but there's nothing more dangerous than the least prolific goal scorer against Manchester United. That is a hat trick waiting, but I'll be hopeful.
Yeah, and I think that's just about all I had to say on Southampton, unless anyone has anything else they want to sort of add.
9-0.
Lovely stuff. I think we've covered all the bases there. To end the show, then obviously we are over the hour mark, so Ben will be angrily typing away as we speak. But I want to get your lineup predictions. Now I want you to go with what you think Ollie will go with, not what you think we should go with. So I think it's probably better if we just do a collective one. So I think we can assume David De Gea will be in goal. I think that's right in saying Henderson won't be back in time. Backline speaks for itself. But I don't think Varane will be back in time. So we're looking at the same. We're looking at the same defence. What do we think he'll go with in the midfield? Do we think he'll stick with tried and trusted, or do we think he'll just nudge the boat out a little bit?
He'll go with McFred.
Yeah, McFred.
You know what?
I think just a side note.
You were so elaborate on what you said earlier, and I had in my mind that Van der Beek would play. I'm going to go that he's not going to play Fred and McTominay. I feel that sometimes he utilises those two against the bigger teams. So I'm going to stick with what I said with Van der Beek, but I'm going to say Fred instead, just to appease everybody else.
I'd be happy with that. That would be my...
Yeah, me too. That's what I'd want to do. Whether Ollie goes with that, sometimes not the same context, is
Has Van der Beek and Bruno both ever started together? Van der Beek and Bruno?
They must have done at some point.
Only once,
a few times. And they did against Brighton in the Carabao Cup.
No, they did.
Actually, they did.
And they were wonderful together.
They did away at Southampton last year when we won 3-2.
Yes. Yeah, that's
true.
Yeah.
I think when Donny was playing the pivot as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Tough game for him as well. That game. Yeah. No, but I was just asking. I just wanted to. I don't think I've seen it too often, because I think Ole doesn't, believe that Donny is going to be always playing in that role. The two, but yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well,
we continue with the team, James?
I shall. Thank you, Carl. Thank you.
Brilliant.
The forward line, then. Bruno's obviously a shoe-in. I think Pogba's pretty much assured that left-hand role again, if we can even call it a left-wing role.
I'm going with Andres Pereira.
Kai,
he's gone to Flamengo, hasn't he?
Damn it.
You're getting kicked out of the stream with any more comments like that. I know we might be near the end.
Actually, just a quickie on Pogba, he played a more free role. He didn't actually play the left; he played a more free role. Although his position would have been left. But there we go. I'm being pedantic.
Regardless of Stu's little antics,
sorry.
The two talking points, obviously, striker and right wing. Now we've got two players. Cavani's back from his getaway, his holiday, whatever you'd call it. So he's rivaling Greenwood now again for that start. Martial is obviously, he came on. He's probably just about ready for a start as well. Greenwood played exceptionally well against Leeds, but Southampton are a different opposition. And then obviously you've got the whole argument of the right wing. So what do you guys think Ollie will do in terms of right winger and striker?
Yeah, I can't look. Martial looks like he's come back ready. I think he was a little bit stifled at the weekend with the changes that were made, but it looks like he's bulked up a little bit. He's gone Wayne Rooney and got rid of all of his hair, and he looks ready. However, I can't see him overturning a Greenwood start. I thought Greenwood, and we said this on the show, didn't we, Stu? He was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
and I can't see why, as a 19-year-old kid that's on that kind of form, Ollie is going to upset that apple cart whatsoever. So I cannot see him not starting as number 9. I think even with Cavani back, he's had a bit of a longer period away. He's not going to start either, and I think it came out, didn't it, a couple of months ago? Ollie said that he's not expecting Cavani to start more than half the games United play this season.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, I really believe why would you take Greenwood out of the team? Okay, Pogba on the left for me, I think it works in some games, sometimes doesn't. I think he needs to drop against teams where we're trying to break them down a little bit more. But I think we've all kind of mentioned a few times that Southampton are quite a high pressing team. So I think that Pogba at the top left-hand side where you see it, and he does tend to roam a little bit more, as Stu said earlier. On the right-hand side, I'm going to stick with it. I feel that, Jaden was okay when he came on. I think that there could be a worry with conventional wingers. I think Dan James actually is defensively our best right and left winger, because he tracks back far more than anybody does. But I think you'll see Jaden a little bit more. I think that it will be slightly harder to unlock Southampton. I think Jaden will start for that reason for me.
And just quick one with Pogba. I'm just interested to hear. So, if he doesn't play on the, I still call it left centre mid because it's not really a left wing. But if he doesn't play, then he plays in midfield. Do you guys not ever get a sense that our attacking intent is a little bit stifled in terms of the fact that, like, he has to move the ball a lot further? Like, he has to move the ball, so a player either a long pass or break the line or something. It's really, I enjoy seeing him play the way he's playing now. Like, do people not enjoy it, or is it just a systematic thing? Because I love seeing it. Like, he looks so free and happy, and he wants to do it, and he gets the space to do what he wants, what he's naturally gifted to do, which is dribble. And when he's in the field, he wants to do what his natural instinct says, and that says, no, dominate this guy, nutmeg him first a little bit, and then you need to go. So I don't know if you guys, I don't know. That's what do you think about that?
Who's in?
I'll go first. I completely agree with you. I think the fact that he doesn't, he's not responsible for progressing the ball up the pitch is helping him a lot. He's receiving it in areas where he's a lot more advanced. He's already in the position. He doesn't need to take a touch before he's in a position that he can really hurt opposition, and that's what I really like to see. He's not responsible for giving it to other players so they can hurt the opposition, because that's not what he's good at. If you need a sort of a bridge between defence and attack, it shouldn't be Paul Pogba. We saw when Ollie first came in, Pogba was the most advanced midfielder. He was one of the league's top scorers in maybe 6 months. He's phenomenal in that area.
Can you imagine Neves? If you watch how Neves plays, because people really have this image that they want Pogba to do that similar job that Neves is doing, which is play the ball, it's simple over here, keep it simple, Pogba, 5-yard pass. But then again, he's really not built like that. Just look at both players. One is literally saying, I live for this midfield. And then one says, no, I live to attack. This is what I do. I'm just 6'2", but I am actually an elegant player. I should be David Silva, actually, in another reincarnated life.
It's really dependent on the team. I've got to be honest with you. I think we have seen Pogba thrive in the middle of the park. But I think it's mainly dependent on who's sat behind him. I don't think that he really has too much of a synergy with someone like Fred. I think that McTominay on his own is not good enough defensively. The only real player that can do a good job behind Pogba and seem to unlock his more attacking capability and have the passing range is Matic again. But as you see, on many occasions, not quite can do this so many games, this, that, and the other. And I think up until January, if I remember correctly, our best statistics for the two starting in that double pivot at that moment in time, with a 100% win record at that point, more than 10 games, was Matic and Pogba up until January. And then I think obviously it was Fred McTominay for a lot of the games after that. Does that make sense? So I don't think that Pogba not playing in the midfield is not a possibility. I think he actually is very good there, but I think it's really sole dependent on who's sat behind him.
Well, let me tell you the main issue for me with Pogba being out on the left on as part of our attacking three is you can absolutely nullify that in a 4-3-3 formation if you're the opposition, because all you'll do, you'll pull in the two wingers and you'll just nullify Pogba like that.
But he can control two people as well. That's the one thing in that area. He can just actually control the game.
The problem is when Pogba's not been that effective, he's been not man marked, but he's had two players around him at any one time, and that's always a problem. If you remember back in the Van Gaal days, Van Gaal saw a little pocket for 2 games where Fellaini was by himself, so the ball and it was on the right hand side, and he'd take it down on his chest, and then suddenly people wise to it. If I was on the pitch and I'm watching it, you look at it, you know what's going in and around you. And if Pogba in his segment on the left, and he can take out 2 players, you're absolutely right with his physical power and that. But you just look at it and you work your way around it. And that's where Leeds, because he had more of a freer role, he wasn't specifically out on the left, he wasn't cutting in on the right, he was moving across the pitch. It makes it more difficult for you to manage. And that's why 4-3-3 suits us much better.
I guess if you add Sancho, then also you can also say we can also shift focus, because a lot of the time the focus was Bruno. When Pogba was injured, it was like, nullify Bruno, we're good. And then when Bruno was there, it was like, okay, nullify Pogba. Then you can already see Bruno struggling because Bruno can't get the ball already. And then now we've got a third piece, which is Sancho, which now is okay, fine. All right, okay. Where do we focus? How do we go on this? And now we have Cavani. And Greenwood is also filling up, and he's making the right runs as well. So I think maybe we could see Pogba just be part of the attackers now, which is also totally fine. Because if we just say focus on the midfield, just find somebody, get him in there and all of that, then all of a sudden you say, okay, fine, Pogba, it's now from now on for United, you focus on us going forward, and we put responsibility for you to win us things with that group. And then everyone else behind, we need to focus on how can we make this better? Because it seems like if it can't be the solution to say every time, not Pogba, you go there now. Okay, no, you come here. I know it's technically great. It's a dream for a manager. But if you just say to him, you know what, you're smiling up there and you're devastating, so you stay there and then we deal with everything here, then I think it's a lot better. I like watching it specifically without looking at his...
Mark, I'll tell you, Kai, that's what I've been talking about for months, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm just reiterating what you're saying. That's
exactly right.
Don't start him off again.
It's my favourite formation. It's my favourite formation, and the beauty of what you're talking about is you can do it with Pogba and you can do it with Bruno. You could take Cavani out of the equation and put Bruno up top. The idea of a good 4-3-3 allows a fluid 5. Not a fluid 6, a fluid 5, and it enables you to interchange those players. And for the first time, and it's weird really, because Sancho, by the addition of one player in that forward 6, so to speak, has enabled Ollie to make these minute changes during games. Switch Sancho from right to left, take him off, bring on Martial, bring on Greenwood, take off Cavani. Jesus Christ, you're 70 minutes into the game and Greenwood's absolutely smashed him with the aerial threat of Cavani coming on. Or you take off Sancho for Rashford. Sancho's running ragged for 70 minutes as a left back. Marcus Rashford's coming on. You're just going to go like this. Fucking hell, leave me alone. And that's what it does. And so I'm delighted. One player has enabled Ollie to do all of that. Nuts, isn't it? Absolute nuts. Beautiful. One player's allowed it, so
we're so giddy. Look at us, United support.
Right.
And can I also just ask everyone to never call Rafael Varane by his first name? It's Champions League Varane.
Yes,
please,
of course.
Please.
No, agreed.
Agreed.
As long as you don't call him Varane, like a certain
Varane
fan.
Who
called him Varane?
There's a chant that went around Twitter where some bloke just put Varane into a chant, and it was disgraceful. Yeah, the majority of the video was him trying to show off the Stone Island badge on his sleeve, so it sort of instantly got washed under the carpet. But
too right, you wouldn't see me wearing that shite.
Back to the question I asked you maybe half an hour ago. Are we going with Jaden Sancho and Greenwood to fill those roles of right winger? And
I am, yeah.
Everyone in agreement with that?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, sound. Well, to finish the show, then I'll get some score predictions. It'd be rude not to. Mark, what are you going with? Final score and first goal scorer.
You know what? I really am pleased with how much stronger we looked at the back, and with that, I think we were very unfortunate to actually concede against Leeds. So I think we're not going to concede today, and I'm going to say 4-0, just purely on the basis that we've started strong. I think we're going to be strong at the back, and I just think that they're going to take that into the next game. First goal scorer for me, I think it's going to be Mason for me.
Kai, I'll come to you.
I'm going for 5-1, which is basically 4-0. So I see you, Mark. I see you. And I'm going for a Greenwood hat trick. Let's go.
Fair enough. Stu?
I'm straight up with it.
Clean sweep. I'm going for 4-0 as well. I think we'll win comfortably. And I'm sorry. Yeah, Greenwood to score first. It won't be a poacher's goal, but it won't be a 6-yard goal. He'll cut in from the left or cut in from the right, and he'll get his goal his usual way. But I'm going for Greenwood. I think we'll beat them comfortably. I really do. I think. Look, I think Southampton publicly will talk themselves up, but privately, Hasenhuttl would have put loss. You know, if he'd gone through his first 6 games, he'd probably put an L. You know, because these managers do. They look at it and they plan ahead. It gives them a statistic, and I think he'll put an L by it. I don't think he thinks they can beat us, and I think it's 4-0. So,
yeah, fair enough. Well, just before I give my prediction, I'll bring up this question from Jarvis. Question to the panel, but I can answer for all of you. It's basically a question to James Ridge. How many goals will Greenwood score in the Premier League? 21, 22,
45.
I was going to say 22.
I'm going to say 33 to break that record from Mohamed Salah. Just throw it out there. No, in all seriousness, I think about 15. I'd be very happy with that.
I was going to say 18. I was going to say 18.
Yeah.
22.
He scored how many in his first season?
19.
Premier League.
13.
Premier League.
Oh, Premier League. Yeah, he scored how many? 6, right? 7 in his first.
I think
7.
I think Premier League it was like 10.
I think it was.
He was double figures. He was double figures Premier League, wasn't he?
Yeah. So I mean, that was his first season before.
I thought he scored about
he was a
18 or
grown
19.
man.
I thought he scored about 18 or 19 for the season.
That was in that was in all
For
competitions.
the full season,
In
yeah.
all competitions,
So I
yeah.
think if he was doing that when he actually looked like a kid, now he looks like a slightly older kid. And also the way that when Pogba found him and he took his touch forward, I thought the guy was going to catch him and do a sliding tackle, but Greenwood was way too quick. He pushed the ball and he just absolutely killed that guy for pace. So I think that improvement will also mean that he'll score a lot more. So I think 26-ish, 27.
He cut across his path slightly, Kai. Only slightly. He cut across his path. So he couldn't get us, and he could only put that in one area because most forwards would have actually bent that away from the post. It would have been bent away, or it would have gone into the side netting on the near side. He used a pendulum motion. He could only score in one area of the goal. That's all he had, and it was a beautiful finish. Yeah, beautiful finish.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that showed me that he's doing something else that he hasn't. I haven't seen that type of a goal from Greenwood where he's just blazing on the run, pushes it forward through. So I think it's a sort of good things.
6-yard area. Get him in that fucking 6-yard area. That's what I say. Greenwood in the 6-yard area, not Phil Jones in the 6. Greenwood in the 6-yard.
Greenwood in the 6.
Just you wait till Karthik sees this. I'm going to tell him you've said that.
Phil Jones on corners.
Right.
Honestly.
But back to score predictions. I actually, believe it or not, I was going to go 4-0. But since you've all gone for a 4-goal deficit, no, I'll humble myself a little bit. I think Southampton will be a lot more sturdy defensively than Leeds were. So I'll go with a 2-0. I don't think we're going to concede, but I'll go. I'm just staying realistic. I want to get this right. It's not like I'm saying, Southampton will win 5-0. But I always go with Mark. You're not coming back on. Shut up.
Poor Mark.
I always go with Maguire to score first, so I'm going to go with Maguire to score first, especially with this new added prowess he's got from, as Stu called him, the what was it, a fairy godmother of set pieces or whatever that we've brought
Well,
in.
I mean, yeah, basically the you know, the messiah of set pieces.
But yeah, so 2-0, 4-0, 5-1, 4-0. Any of those results I'd take. So on that note, a massive thank you to you boys for joining me. That is the end of the show. A massive thank you as well to everyone who tuned in, dropped your comments, all that, just got involved with the show. Really appreciate it. We really appreciate you getting involved and giving us talking points, because I'm completely useless as host. So yeah, we will have a show for you tomorrow. It'll be me again, so tune in to see more of this beautiful face. I believe Mark and Stu, you'll be on again tomorrow. Stu
so.
definitely will. I'm not sure about Mark for Timeline Talk anyway, but if you want to see more of Stu, tune in. Yeah, until then, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you everyone for joining me on the stream as well, and we'll see you tomorrow.